Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Monday, March the 3rd, 2025, and the time now is 7:32 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk briefly about the meeting or the press conference between the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the United States President Donald Trump, together with the United States Vice President JD Vance. So last week, I made a video in the afternoon, immediately after watching a segment or part of the press conference, the meeting. And I did stated that I was going to make another video, okay, after having done thorough reflection and analyzing the situation. Now, friends, I have done that. I'm gonna state immediately now, friends. Donald Trump often talks about making deals and that he wants to be or he's going to be the peacemaker, okay, in the world. He wants to be remembered as the peacemaker. To that, friends, all I can say is yes, there is a possibility that Donald Trump could emerge as a peacemaker. But then my question here is peacemaker to what? For what? For who? Okay, or for whom? And the reason for this question is that I have said many times that the war in Ukraine is a stain on white/European consciousness. The white/Europeans, they've told us many times, especially us in the global south, that Europe and the white utopia that is Europe and quote unquote the West is so peaceful, and that the rest of the world, especially the global south, often sees war and famine and catastrophe and so on. The war in Ukraine basically is a stain on European/white/Western consciousness. It shows them as weak. It exposes them, okay, their weakness and their inability. And it exposes a lot of things about the West that the West has propagate or project of itself to the rest of the world, and particularly to the rest of the world that is known as the global south. In Ukraine, we are seeing white people with blonde hair and blue eyes being killed, okay? And the West, most especially the United States and the Anglosphere, most especially because in terms of whiteness, in terms of European white power today, the Anglosphere, as led by the United States, and we are talking about the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and so on, New Zealand, they are right now the controllers and the owners, okay, and the most powerful in what is known as the Western Alliance, the white power establishment. And I do not mean white power in this case to mean racism, but white power in this case to also mean European white dominance against or over the rest of the world. Now, Donald Trump often states that he is going to make deals. He is a deal maker and that he wants to be remembered as the peacemaker in the world. Yes, once again, Donald Trump could emerge as a peacemaker. But once again, to that, I'm going to ask peacemaker to what? To who? For what? For whom? Because we could see a possibility of Donald Trump helping end the war in Ukraine, which means that Ukraine is going to lose a lot and Russia is going to emerge in control, okay, as owners of the eastern provinces of Ukraine that Russia now occupies. That could be the case. Once again, Donald Trump could emerge as a peacemaker in Europe, in the European theater. However, we need to be conscious as a global south. We need to pay attention. We need to observe because there is a possibility that while Donald Trump and the United States and the West, as led by the Anglo-Saxons, the Anglosphere, could end the war in Ukraine, whether resulting in Russia and Putin's defeat or not, could go around bombing the hell out of people's countries around the world. And I'm talking specifically of the global south. This means the United States and the Anglospheres ending the war in Europe, in Ukraine, whether Russia is defeated or not and Putin is ousted or not. That is one part of it. But then going around the world and dropping bombs on African countries. And right now the Sahel countries needs to be very careful. South Africa took Israel to court, and South Africa is going at it with Donald Trump. The possibility of a destabilization and a breaking apart of South Africa is something that Africa needs to pay attention to. We are seeing, as much as Donald Trump is talking about peacemaking, Donald Trump and members of his administration and the US government have been making hints or throwing stones at the Chinese. Okay, and we could see a possible war, tension between China and the United States over Taiwan. We are also seeing the situation in the Middle East, the tension between Israel and Iran, which, as Donald Trump has been saying, there is a possibility that we could see the United States going to war with Iran. In terms of Gaza, Donald Trump is now talking about the United States owning Gaza, controlling Gaza, and relocating the Palestinian people. In just last week, we saw an AI generated, let's say like a clip, which basically shows Gaza as a party spot, okay? The party spot. Donald Trump has a golden statue that is a scene of Donald Trump and I think Netanyahu on the beach and sipping on whatever, pina colada or whatever they call it. And a lot of party girls just partying and the Palestinians are nowhere. So as much as we could see Donald Trump helping to end the war in Ukraine, we could possibly see, as a global south, most especially, the proliferation, the expansion of war in our parts of the world. While white people's countries are peaceful, white children are going to school, and so on, and white people are working. While in our parts of the world, the global south, the parts of the world that is known as the global south, Africa, we could see the spread, the expansion of war, which leads to our people dying, our children and our younger ones not being able to go to school and they're falling back in their studies, our youth not having jobs, and our countries destabilized. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But once again, friends, in terms of the whole idea of Trump being the deal maker and so on, we all know truthfully that Donald Trump is a bully. But Donald Trump's kind of politics or diplomacy, I think, only works in that the rest of the world is poor. As much and as long as the rest of the world is poor, Donald Trump can talk tough, he can bark, he can even send a dog to the rest of the world, the global south, and still come out, okay, with a deal. But Donald Trump kinds of politics and ways of doing business cannot work if the rest of the world was powerful. If countries throughout the world, especially in the global south, have strong governments and officials in their governments who have dignity and love and caring for their people and countries, Donald Trump's kind of politics will not work. Now, friends, I want to apologize for deviating here. I want to set the stage for what I'm going to say. I know as of now you are looking, okay, or you've seen the title of this video. So I want to expand on what I spoke about last week concerning the meeting or the press conference between the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, together with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. Now, I watched the entire video, okay, about 49 minutes, okay, long video. I listened to what other people are saying, especially prominent members, okay, and I'm talking about observers and commentators on international relations. And I'm going to state here that Zelenskyy did a wonderful job. He was very much careful. He was respectful. Zelenskyy did nothing to disrespect the United States, and I can expand on that. Now, throughout the United States, many, especially members in the government, even one such as Lindsey Graham, who's been nothing but a hawk, okay, an anti-Russia hawk, who really wanted to have the United States supporting Ukraine to defeat Putin. At one point, when the war started, Lindsey Graham even stated that somebody, some brute in Russia, should take out Putin. And then he basically recanted his statement because of fear that that could be retribution against him. Now he is tough talking, going at the Ukrainian president and Ukraine. Whether it is because of fear of Donald Trump, who Lindsey Graham at one point did disrespected and Trump came at him, or whether he is trying to make up for what he said about Vladimir Putin. Now he is in fear. I do not know. But members of the US government, okay, and prominent members in the American political and social sphere are coming out blaming Zelensky for what happened in the White House, the Oval Office, and stating over and over that Zelensky should apologize. Now, friends, I do believe that Volodymyr Zelensky did nothing wrong. He should not apologize. In fact, I do believe that Donald Trump and JD Vance owed Zelensky an apology. They were the ones who were rude. They did not know how to treat their guest, who is a head of state of another country. Now, what I have witnessed prompt me to question how many of such meetings have occurred in the United States Oval Office behind closed doors that we don't hear about or see. Now, in terms of me coming from the global south, especially from Africa, our countries and leaders are often the ones who are disrespected more by Western governments and leaders. So I really would like to know, okay, if there are transcripts out there or secret videos of American leaders flat out disrespecting African leaders and countries. Because if they can do Donald Trump and JD Vance what they did to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, if they can do that to Zelensky, just imagine what they've been doing and what they continue to do to African leaders and other leaders from the global south. Now, as I watch the video, the press conference or the meeting, okay, between Donald Trump, the president of the United States, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, together with JD Vance, the vice president of the United States. Zelenskyy spoke peacefully, calmly, and Zelenskyy kept trying to redirect the conversation back to the whole notion of Russia being the bad guys. To be honest, Zelenskyy did parroted the Western narrative, which is Russians are bad, Putin is a criminal, Putin is the enemy, and that the Russians are killing Ukrainians and bombing Ukraine, destroying Ukraine, and so on. That has been the narrative out there. The Russians attack first, okay, unprovoked, and so on. Zelenskyy did repeated those lines, which it is an American line. But Zelenskyy did nothing to disrespect the United States. In fact, the whole idea of the tension came about when one journalist asked Donald Trump, okay, Poland having been controlled after World War II by the Russians, okay, the Soviet Union. Now Poland, okay, or the Polish are very much frightened of the fact that Donald Trump is getting too closer to Russia. When the journalist asked that question, it made Donald Trump uneasy. That's when the tension began to generate. In fact, Donald Trump spoke, he answered the question, but he kept mentioning the whole idea of Volodymyr Zelenskyy having a deep-seated hatred for Vladimir Putin, which is the case. And American governments and leaders do have deep-seated hatred for Vladimir Putin. But it was at that point that the whole press conference went sour. Donald Trump kept stressing that if he doesn't align with Russia, he cannot come up with a deal. He stated that he aligns himself with Russia, with Ukraine, and with the world. He aligns himself with the United States of America, which is a good line for anybody to say. But to be honest, the whole idea of Donald Trump being a peacemaker and a deal maker, I think as of now, it is much more of a talking point than a reality. Yes, he could come up with a deal, not because he's a strong president or because he is skilled, but because the United States, whether it is weak or weaker today compared to the years and months and decades after World War II or prior to the 2000s, Donald Trump could come up with a deal because of the might of the United States, the influence of the United States. As much as the United States is much weaker today compared to the past, the US still does have leverage and influence in everything, okay? Whether we are talking about economics, infrastructure, finance, development, military or militarism, throughout the world, and so on. Now, friends, when Donald Trump was questioned about his alignment with Russia, okay, and the fear that the Polish are having as a result of Trump aligning himself with Russia, he became uneasy. His face turned sour. His face actually got oranged, okay, a color that many are associating or have been associating with Trump, okay, his look. But JD Vance came into the conversation, okay? The whole time, only his leg was shown. He said nothing. Only Marco Rubio at some point spoke because Donald Trump directed a question to him and he provided an answer. However, when JD Vance came into the conversation, he basically took it to another level. JD Vance actually to me sound like an high school student, an unwise high school student or a college buddy who is basically riding or dying with his mate, okay, his mates, rather than stepping back and teaching them, okay, to make a sound decision. As much as Donald Trump did got mistake every now and he said something that basically were the Trump ways, okay, or way of doing things. Trump was calm for the most part. In fact, it is JD Vance who basically gaslighted the conversation, okay, gaslighted the meeting. He stated that the Ukrainians are losing a lot. And then he accused the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of being disrespectful to the United States, of coming to the United States and trying to litigate so and so to the media. However, friends, the Ukrainian president was not saying anything that he hasn't said before. Okay, he was saying the same thing. But if we look at it, the manner in which JD Vance and Donald Trump treated the president of Ukraine, I think it is the result of their anger. Yes, JD Vance stated that the president of Ukraine during the election came here and was campaigning, quote unquote, for the opposition. I think there was a hatred, okay? There was an anger over that. But anybody can do that. The party that is in power, I'm going to be friends with that party just in case they win the election. If they lose the next party, I'm going to realign myself with them. I think that's what this trip was about. The president of Ukraine and Ukraine as a country trying to realign itself now with Donald Trump since Biden and the Democrats are no longer in the White House. However, friends, JD Vance was very much disrespectful to the president of Ukraine, yelling at the man to the point where Volodymyr Zelenskyy asked him that, or stated that, you shouldn't speak like that, okay? Raising your voice, blah, 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 okay? Trying to let JD Vance know that he shouldn't talk to him the manner in which he did. But Donald Trump and JD Vance spoke to Zelenskyy, the head of state of another country, in a disrespectful manner. Trump spoke to Zelenskyy as if he was speaking to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. He spoke to Zelenskyy how he often spoke to and with prominent American political and social icons, to the point where he said to Zelenskyy, you've done talk enough. You're doing too much talking. That's not how you treat a head of state of another country, because honestly, the United States will not tolerate if an American official is treated like that around the world. But this then prompted me to bring something in. I watched an interview with the Indian Foreign Minister, Jay Shankara. He attended a conference in Europe in which he stated that what Western ambassadors do in India, if his ambassadors, Indian ambassadors, do the same, Western countries will be up in arms. Okay, they will go to war if Indian ambassadors do the same thing, or not even the same thing, but a fragment of what Western ambassadors are doing. Once again, I'm going to repeat. The foreign minister of India stated that if the Indian ambassadors do fraction of what Western ambassadors are doing in India, if Indian ambassadors do so, a fraction of those in Western capitals, Western governments and countries will be up in arms. They will go to war against, okay, for what they perceive to be an infringement or an attack on their sovereignty. Now, friends, once again, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, was flat out disrespected. At some point in the meeting, okay, during the conference, he was questioned by one American journalist, asking him, why doesn't he wear a suit? He asked Zelenskyy, do you have a suit like the one I have? That was so childish and disrespectful and stupid. I think the power, the prestige, and the might of the United States is going in the heads of many Americans. Many Americans, leaders, politicians, journalists, are taking this too far. And honestly, this is why the situation in Ukraine, okay, as much as Trump can say he wants to end it, it is going to end up in a Russian victory. And that victory, I think, will serve as an anxiety factor to Americans. I think it should be an eye-opener for the United States, for Americans, because it is at a point where Americans are becoming very rude, American leaders and politicians and prominent figures. That's not how you talk to a prominent political figures of the world. Zelenskyy is the head of state of a country with at least 40 million people. At least they are saying about 6 to 10 million Ukrainians have left the country. But those who stay, I think, makes up 25 to 30 million people. Ukraine is one of the biggest countries in Europe, largest countries in terms of population and in terms of landmass. I think when you take away Russia from the equation, Ukraine's supposed to be the biggest, if I can remember. Yes, friends, Ukraine is at war and is losing the war. However, Ukraine is a prominent country in Europe. And the end result of this war in Ukraine could be a catastrophe for Europe and the West, even for the United States. The manner in which J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, the manner in which the journalists questioned Zelenskyy, asking him whether he had suit. Don't you have suit? Why are you coming here not wearing suit? It is disrespectful. It is outrageous. Where was that same journalist when Elon Musk was in the White House, no suit, looking so casual, and his son was just doing whatever? Donald Trump did not put that journalist in his place, telling him that he should not question, okay, ask a foreign heads of state such question. But this is a vivid, it's a clear example of Americans and Western leaders and government and prominent figures disrespecting leaders of poor and less powerful countries. If they can do that to Zelenskyy, just imagine, friends, what they are doing and what they have been doing to leaders from countries or of countries in the global south. And in this case, African countries most especially. Now, friends, I'm going to end by saying that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, despite what Donald Trump friends are saying, in fact, one Fox News presenter even stated that Ukraine, okay, is a proxy of the United States. Ukrainian presidents should not be saying this or that because Ukraine gets money from the United States and Ukraine is an American proxy. Such statement boldly is very denigrating, it's disrespectful, and it's stupid. These are statements that will backfire in the future. And it is showing the rest of the world the true color and true nature of the United States. Just like during the meeting, the conference, Donald Trump kept stressing Ukrainian rare earth metal. It, to me, seems as if Donald Trump is not all about peace. Donald Trump is actually taking advantage of Ukraine being in the most vulnerable condition, and trying to scoop as much as Donald Trump and the United States can scoop before Russia gets its hands on it. I think this is what it is about. But again, it is said that Donald Trump did kick Volodymyr Zelenskyy out, okay, of the White House, and that it is also stated that Zelenskyy did not sign the agreement that he was supposed to sign, which was going to give the United States and Trump 50%, okay, or access to Ukrainian metals and rare earth metals, which once again, I think Donald Trump's politics in this case is not about peace. It is about getting as much from Ukraine as the United States and Donald Trump can get before Russia gain controls of those resources. Now, friends, Volodymyr Zelenskyy did nothing wrong. He did nothing disrespectful to the United States. And as a result, I think he should not apologize. In fact, it is Donald Trump and JD Vance that should apologize. And every American who've been disrespecting him should apologize to Ukraine and to Zelenskyy. Now, friends, tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, but most especially and most importantly, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.